Look down at your own hands for a second. The cells inside them are running on instructions written in your DNA, instructions you inherited from your parents and they from theirs, stretching back through every ancestor you've ever had. Except a surprisingly large chunk of those instructions didn't come from any ancestor at all. Roughly 8% of your entire genome, the code that builds and runs you, was originally written by viruses. Not viruses you caught. Viruses that infected your ancestors millions of years ago, wrote themselves permanently into the DNA and never left. That 8% has been passed down, parent to child, for millions of years, copied perfectly every single time a cell in your body divides. It's in you right now, in every cell, as much a part of your genetic code as the genes for your eye color or your height. And here's the part that turns the whole story upside down. Without one of those ancient viral invasions, you couldn't have been born at all. Here's how something like that even happens. Most viruses work by hijacking a cell, forcing it to copy the virus, then moving on. But one particular family of viruses, called retroviruses, does something stranger. A retrovirus inserts its own genetic code directly into the DNA of the cell it infects. If that sounds familiar, it's because the most well-known retrovirus alive today is HIV. The same basic trick of writing itself into a cell's own DNA is exactly what makes that kind of virus so difficult to fully remove from the body. Now imagine that same mechanism, but happening not in a random body cell, but in a cell that gets passed on to the next generation. Normally, a viral infection affects just one person in the cells the virus reaches. But every so often, across deep evolutionary time, a retrovirus infects a sperm or egg cell, a reproductive cell. And if that happens, the viral code doesn't just stay in one body. It gets copied into the DNA of the child that reproductive cell helps create, and then that child's children, and the one after that, permanently. What started as an infection in a single ancestor becomes a fixed, inherited part of the entire lineage that follows, indistinguishable from any other stretch of DNA. Scientists call these leftover viral sequences endogenous retroviruses, and once you know to look for them, they're everywhere in the human genome. When the human genome was first fully mapped, one of the genuinely shocking findings was just how little of it codes for the actual proteins that build a body. Only around 1 to 2%. A far larger share turned out to be these ancient viral insertions and related mobile genetic elements, sitting quietly in the code, copied faithfully every time a cell divides, most of them broken and inert after millions of years of mutation. For a long time, this was written off as junk, dead viral fragments, evolutionary roadkill riding along in our DNA doing nothing. And a lot of it may well be exactly that. But then researchers found something that made everyone look again. One of these ancient viral genes wasn't broken. It was doing a job. And not a minor one. The gene is called syncytin, and it comes directly from the envelope gene of an ancient retrovirus, the part the virus originally used to fuse itself into host cells. In humans, that same fused-together machinery is essential for building the placenta, specifically the layer where a mother's bloodstream and her developing baby's tissue meet and exchange oxygen and nutrients without directly mixing. The exact molecular trick the virus once used to invade cells was repurposed over evolutionary time into the mechanism that lets a placenta form at all. Sit with that for a moment because it's genuinely strange. The reason mammals can carry live young inside the body, nourished through a placenta, appears to depend on a gene we got from a virus. Reptiles and birds lay eggs. Mammals took a different path, and one of the key tools that made that path possible was handed to us by accident, by an infection in some distant ancestor hundreds of millions of years ago. And here's a detail that makes the whole thing even more remarkable. Scientists have discovered that different branches of mammals actually captured different versions of syncytin from different viral infections at different points in history. Primates have one version, mice and rats have another, captured separately. Certain other mammals have their own. This means the trick of turning a viral fusion gene into placental machinery didn't happen just once. It happened repeatedly, independently across the mammal family tree, each lineage domesticating its own ancient virus to solve the same problem. Evolution didn't just get lucky once. It reached for the same viral tool over and over whenever the opportunity came. So that's what happened. Now otherwise, picture a version of evolutionary history where that particular retrovirus never infects that particular reproductive cell. The syncytin gene never gets captured. That one viral envelope gene, the one repurposed into the machinery of the placenta, simply isn't there in the ancestral genome. The immediate consequence is enormous. Without that captured viral gene, the specific way the mammalian placenta forms doesn't develop the way it did. Now, evolution is resourceful, and it's genuinely debated how completely this blocks live birth. Some lineages may have found other tools, but the deep, efficient placental connection that lets mammals carry developing young for long periods, nourishing them richly inside the body, is tied directly to this viral gene in the lineages we can actually trace. Remove it, and the entire branch of mammals that includes primates, that includes us, loses one of the core innovations that made it what it is. Follow that thread, and you're not tweaking human history anymore. You're cutting one of the roots of the entire mammalian family tree. The specific evolutionary path that led from small early mammals to primates to humans runs directly through the ability to reproduce this particular way. Pull that thread, and there's a real chance the whole lineage that eventually produces us never develops in the same form. No efficient placenta, no long internal gestation the way mammals do it, no primates as we know them, no us. And it all comes down to whether one virus, hundreds of millions of years ago, happened to infect one reproductive cell instead of an ordinary one. But syncytin is just the most dramatic example. These captured viral sequences turned out to be woven into far more of our biology than anyone expected. Some of them act as genetic switches, turning nearby genes on and off. Others appear to play roles in the immune system, in early embryonic development, even in the brain. One viral-derived gene is involved in how nerve cells send signals to each other, packaging genetic material and shuttling it between neurons in a way that looks remarkably like how a virus packages itself. The machinery of infection, repurposed into the machinery of thought. So, this isn't a story about a few dead fragments hitchhiking in our code. It's that the ancient viral invasions of our ancestors became a genuine source of raw material for evolution to build with. Every time one of those infections wrote itself into a reproductive cell and got passed down, it added new genetic code to the pool, code that was usually useless, sometimes harmful, but occasionally, across enormous stretches of time, got repurposed into something the body could use. Some researchers now think these viral insertions were one of the significant engines driving major evolutionary innovation, precisely because they dumped so much new material into genomes for natural selection to experiment with. There's a darker side to this coexistence, too. Not all of that ancient viral code stayed quiet. Some endogenous retroviruses can reactivate, and researchers have found their fingerprints associated with certain autoimmune conditions and some cancers. Cases where the dormant viral machinery seems to switch back on and cause harm. So we're not just carrying repurposed tools. We're carrying dormant weapons too, most of them permanently disabled. Some of them apparently not quite as disabled as we'd like. So maybe the strangest part of all this isn't that viruses are in your DNA, it's that the line between you and the things that infected your ancestors was never as clean as it feels. A meaningful part of what makes a human body work, how you developed before birth, how some of your cells signal, possibly even aspects of how your brain functions, was authored originally by viruses and then slowly adopted as our own over millions of years until the distinction stopped mattering. You are, quite literally and quite measurably, part virus. And one of those viral fragments may be the specific reason you were able to be born at all. If 8% of the human genome is old viral code, and at least one piece of it turned out to be essential to our own existence, it raises a question worth sitting with. How much of what we think of as purely, definitively human was actually borrowed, captured, or inherited from something that was trying to invade us a very long time ago? That's exactly where we're headed next time on Otherwise. Into the parts of you that came from somewhere else entirely. Subscribe and find out what else you're carrying.